Oh, right, yeah, the next part of yeah, this the Congress. We're on the Congress of Vienna. I've never heard of this, so yeah, let's go.
Following the Napoleonic Wars, the Illuminati thought that the nations of Europe would be so tired of fighting that they would agree to enter into a federation. Switzerland was declared to be a neutral country into which member kingdoms could deposit their money. Since the post Napoleonic nations of Europe were heavily indebted to the Rothschilds, it could be argued that the Congress made Switzerland act as the modern version of the Knights Templar for the past 200 years. Now you know why Switzerland has acted as Europe's untouched bank during the European slaughters of World War I and World War II. The Congress of Vienna resulted in a treaty. Russian Tsar Alexander I opposed this treaty because he saw the Congress as an Illuminati takeover. The Rothschilds vowed that the Romanov dynasty would someday come to an end. Columbus did not discover anything. The Vikings arrived in North America 500 years before Columbus did. Manly P. Hall, the most prolific Masonic author of all time, wrote a compact book in 19...
Here's another thing in a history thing I was listening to. Vikings actually sold um English people, Scottish people, Irish people, Welsh people to Arabs. That was a big Viking trade at one point, to come here, capture people, and sell them to Arabs. Like white slaves was sought after.
44 entitled The Secret Destiny of America. It confirms that the Old World knew about the New World for thousands of years. Columbus sailed to the West because his family and those who paid for his expedition were steeped in Rosicrucianism and wished to lay the foundation of a new world order. One only has to look at the cipher used in his signature for proof of this claim. Much of the occult knowledge of the Knights Templar is carved in stone in Scotland's Rosslyn Chapel. The carvings that line the inner frame above this window are of maize or of Indian corn that grew only in the New World. How could this be if the construction of the Rosslyn Chapel began in 1446, or 46 years before Columbus sailed to the west? For the answer to this question, we should look at the sails on the ships used by Columbus. They were adorned with the logo of the Knights Templar. From before the time of Columbus until today, America has always had a special place in the plans of the New World Order. The Illuminati in Europe saw the rare positive outcome of the American Revolution and sought to subvert it through the Columbian Lodge of the Order of the Illuminati, established in New York in 1785. Agents of the Illuminati worked to start a new revolution in America so that America would resemble France.
It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more fully satisfied of this.
Out the Napoleonic influence. Most of America's founding fathers were deists. They believed in God, but as they, and not the Bible, defined God. The level of Gnosticism that the founding fathers of America were involved in ranges from mild to severe. George Washington never defined his faith in his own writings. He was also a Freemason. He helped design the street plan of Washington, D.C., which is laid out according to Masonic symbology. Thomas Jefferson also talked about God, but rejected the Bible. In fact, Jefferson wrote his own New Testament, deleting passages and cutting out entire books like the Book of Revelation, which didn't agree with him. Benjamin Franklin talked about God, but rejected traditional Christianity. What is particularly disturbing about Benjamin Franklin is his membership in the Hellfire Club in London.
In the late 1700s.
Yeah, but I suppose it's not Christian, really. But I will say that they are definitely Bible bashers, the founding father. Whether they got into the Gnostic side as well, but like in Leviticus on money and that, look, a quote from Leviticus. That's pretty Bible bashery. But also, it's not necessarily the Christian. Obviously, that's Old Testament. The Christian part is the New Testament. So you can see where the Jewish thing and this lines up, because Jews is the Torah, which is the first 4 or 5 books, I think, up to Numbers, maybe. I don't know whether Numbers is even included. I don't know.
A group of Englishmen formed the first Hellfire Club, a fraternity dedicated to drinking, sex, and at times ridiculing Christianity and mocking its sacred rituals. Members met at ruined monasteries to revel in black masses and drunken orgies. An occasional participant was the American ambassador to Great Britain, Benjamin Franklin.
Whether or not any of these American leaders are Christian is not for me to decide. The singular point being made here is that America has always had a thick Christian veneer applied to a Gnostic core. Over time, that occult core has grown and the Christian veneer has worn thin. In 1791, Alexander Hamilton established the first privately owned central bank in the United States with $10 million on a 20-year charter. This is contrary to the United States Constitution.
Kind of a bit what Jesus says as well about people that appear to be sheep but are actually wolves. They're wolves dressed as sheep.
Which Hamilton signed. When the charter expired, the head of this private group was revealed. None other than Nathan Rothschild in England said, "Either the application for the renewal of the charter is granted, or the United States will find itself in a most disastrous war." The United States repelled the British on American soil within 1 year of Nathan Rothschild's pronouncement during the War of 1812. Fortunately for America, Britain was tied up fighting Napoleon in Europe and couldn't send enough troops to reclaim America. While America won a military victory, its financial back was broken. The War of 1812 forced the rechartering of the private bank of the United States. Thanks to the war and inflation, the debt owed to the bank exploded to $127 million. Andrew Jackson vetoed the bank in 1832. In 1835, President Jackson distributed a $35 million surplus. This was the only time in American history that the United States had balanced its books.
Jeez. That's crazy, but that's kind of like a lot of the, like Napoleon, that war. I mean, we had like 4 major nearly back-to-back conflicts. So that's kind of true of every great nation, that they're always in debt.
The Rothschilds had their sights set on reclaiming America. A divide and conquer strategy would be used by creating a conflict between the North and the South. The North was to be a British colony annexed to Canada under the control of Lionel Rothschild. The South was to be a French colony given to Napoleon III of France under the control of James Rothschild. Lincoln's main problem shifted from slavery, which he outlawed, to how he was going to pay for the defense of America against the international bankers who were destroying it. Lincoln came up with a brilliant solution called the greenback. The government would print its own interest-free currency that would later be redeemable in gold. The bankers wouldn't stand for this. On April 14th, 1865, 5 days after the South surrendered, Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth. Booth was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle. The monarchies of Europe, led by the British royal family, had been involved in the occult for centuries through the sponsorship of clairvoyance. The British royal family is deeply Masonic. The Queen's cousin, the Duke of Kent, is British Freemasonry's Grand Master. There is even a Freemasonic lodge in Buckingham Palace. Though the current Queen says that she is not amused at this, she and her predecessors were often Masonic. It is a fact that much of the European nobility goes back to various houses, especially in England and France, which link the lines of the kings of England and the kings of Jerusalem. Fiction occurs when this link is used to create a mythology which states that the British people, led by their monarch, are one of the lost tribes of Israel. British Israel Freemasons also believe that since America was descendant from Britain, Americans who are of British Masonic descent are also one of the lost tribes of Israel. On the back of the US $1 bill, there exists a Star of David, hidden in plain sight. The British royal family is more German than it is English. Queen Victoria was married to Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Under pressure from anti-German sentiment created...
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, yeah, the royals, they're a completely different people, and like the Anglo-Saxons, most English people is going to go to the Anglo-Saxons, because although the Anglo-Saxons actually integrated with the Britons that was in England before, they were actually asked to come here for the Britons to fight the Scottish, because the Scottish kept invading. So there was an integration, and the two bloodlines mixed with the Saxons and the Britons, making Anglo-Saxons and eventually making England. But yeah, the royal family now have this why, like, I don't know whether it'll come up in this, but like the royal family supported Hitler, and like where they got changed their name, they had no choice once it all actually kicked off, but to change their name to Windsor. Their name is whatever, Saxe-Gubens or whatever they're called. But yeah, it's true. Since the last Anglo-Saxon king was King Harold, William the Conqueror, and that whole lineage is what, well, yeah, they are descended from them, but even then, it's complicated. It's fascinating, but complicated. Like I even see Saxons may not even be one group of people, but Jutland, Frisian, and something else. What's the other one? But yeah, the Germanic tribes, Germanic tribes. But they may not actually, like Saxon means men of the long knife, because they had the sax as a weapon. But it could be the Saxons was the name that the Britons gave to these people that was coming and raiding. It's a bit like Viking. Viking isn't a group of people, it's an act. Viking is what we called them for doing the same thing as the Saxons did. Basically, Saxon and Viking, it's kind of just a group of words for these similar people that keep coming and raiding.
During World War I, King George V changed his family name to Windsor. When Princess Elizabeth wanted to marry Prince Philip of the House of Schleswig-Holstein-Sonderburg-Glücksburg, she faced the same problem that King George did. Prince Philip renounced his titles and adopted the surname of Mountbatten. All four of Prince Philip's sisters married into the German nobility, which embraced Nazi philosophy. Remember that Adam Weishaupt wrote more material on the Illuminati under the sponsorship of Duke Ernst II of Saxe-Coburg-Altenburg. Because Prince Albert was great-grandson of Duke Ernst II and consort to Queen Victoria, the British royal family are direct descendants of Ernst II. Since Duke Ernst II became a member of the Illuminati in 1783, it is not hard to see that the teachings of Adam Weishaupt are being used by the British royal family today. The British monarchy was involved in 2 wars with China over opium. From about the mid-17th century onwards, Europe had a huge trade deficit with China. Europe wanted Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain, but China did not want as much of what Europe had to offer. This trade deficit problem was made worse by the fact that Chinese emperors demanded to be paid in silver and gold coin. The problem was solved when British traders began importing opium into China from India. Large areas of China became addicted to opium. The addiction was so intense that in many areas of China, opium was currency. The conflict between the Chinese emperors and British traders grew so bad that Queen Victoria sent in the British army to fight the Chinese army over opium in 1839 to 1842 and again
Basically,
in 1846 to 1860.
it's basically a drug war. It's basically a street drug war over, drugs and distribution of drugs. It's like, you put people in prison for that if you're not royalty.
When you are told that the British royal family's wealth is based on taxation, don't believe it. It could be argued that the British East India Company occupied India on behalf of the British Crown and its traders. Afghanistan is occupied today by coalition forces. In 2007, 93% of the world's opium production came from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The 2006 Afghan opium harvest was also valued at $3 billion. Ahmad Wali Karzai, brother of Afghan President Hamid Karzai, is intimately linked with the export of opium from Afghanistan. He is also on the CIA payroll.
The Taliban lend the farmers the money. They are indebted to the Taliban. They have to grow the opium. Now the Marines, in their success, are in a sense a victim of their success, because now the population is, they have these opium fields, and we are tolerating it. We are tolerating the cultivation of the opium because we know that if we were to destroy it now, the population would turn against the Marines, and it would be a real security risk.
The Taliban finances much.
I'm pretty sure David Icke said that. I see David Icke say that because it was Iraq, going into Iraq, and then all of a sudden they was here, there, and everywhere, going into Afghanistan. It's like, why are you going in there? And yeah, I think it was David Icke at the time said it's the #1 opium place. Yeah, 90%.
Of its operations by selling opium, which is grown from poppies, which are right now being harvested. So here's the question: why are American troops now helping Afghan farmers grow that opium? Nick Schifrin reports from Afghanistan on a controversial new policy.
In one case, they even paid a farmer $1,000 after U.S. and Afghan special forces burned his crop.
If you can come down to the base or on my next visit, I'll make a payment.
The Round Table groups are the most influential and interconnected secret societies in the Western world. While Cecil Rhodes did not start any of these groups, he was instrumental in ensuring that they worked together toward a common goal. In 1966, Georgetown University history professor Carroll Quigley defined this goal in a massive work entitled Tragedy and Hope. One of the members of the Round Table groups sponsored Carroll Quigley, who was given access to their secret records to produce what the group thought would be an internal publication.
As a teenager, I heard John Kennedy's summons to citizenship. And then, as a student at Georgetown, I heard that call clarified.
Hold on. Powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim. Nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. But don't you think, because this is what this is what everyone tries, really. Yeah, the Persians, everybody tries it, Mongolians, but it never works. Like, ultimately, like, to centralize power, it just doesn't work, which is another thing that makes me think that there is a God. And that God will step in.
By a professor named Carroll Quigley, who said to us that America was the greatest nation in history because our people had always believed in two things: that tomorrow can be better than today, and that every one of us has a personal moral responsibility to make it so.
Soon after Adam Weishaupt died, Italian patriot Giuseppe Mazzini was appointed to be the head of the Illuminati in 1834. Mazzini became a 33rd degree Mason while attending Genoa University. The most important thing about Mazzini is that he formalized the Mafia. The name Mafia is an acronym which stands for Mazzini Artifizia Ferti, Incendi, and Everlameni, or Mazzini authorizes thefts, fires, and poisonings. With the wave of Italian immigration to America starting in the 1890s, the practices of the Mafia merged with the Illuminati of America.
Albert Pike.
Next to Adam Weishaupt, Albert Pike is the most influential Freemason in history. Pike was asked by American Freemasons to reform its rituals. He did so in a Masonic handbook entitled Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Rite of Freemasonry, published in 1871. The Knights of the Golden Circle, or KGC, was a Masonic organization dedicated to establishing a golden circle of territories between Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean, and the southern states, which would officially sanction slavery. Albert Pike was associated with the KGC and created several spin-off groups from it, including the Ku Klux Klan. While he was Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Albert Pike created his own office of Chief Justice of the KKK. This is also borne out at the location of his statue, which is in Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C. Albert Pike is responsible for inflaming racial tensions that were the official cause of the U.S. Civil War. Now you can understand how the American Civil War was really about who would control the money supply of the United States, and that slavery was.
They saw in a region south of Rio Grande a vast new field in which expansion and progress might become a reality. But America was George W.L. Pickering, who sought to translate into action by the founding in 1859 to 60 of the secret and military organization known as the Knights of the Golden Circle, the instrument by which Mexico was to be Americanized and ultimately annexed. The slavery controversy settled in favor of the South, and his own fame and fortune won. Yeah. See, the guy before as well, that Albert Pike, I've heard of him before, but I think he must have come up in something else, or maybe, I don't know. But yeah, the Knights of the Golden Circle, actually, I don't know whether I have heard of them. I don't think I have, which is unusual because I have listened to conspiracy things, but I don't actually know too much about them. But they come up earlier, didn't they?
Secondary issue in this conflict.
Skull and Bone.
William Huntington Russell was one of the more prominent merchants involved in the Chinese opium trade. Born in America, Russell did what most wealthy businessmen did during the Industrial Revolution: protect his assets from taxation by establishing a tax-free foundation. The tax-free foundation that Russell and Company established based on opium revenue was the Russell Trust. The key institution of indoctrination that Russell Trust established was Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones was founded at Yale University in 1832 as a Black Lodge of Freemasonry. The odds that both presidential candidates would happen to be members of Skull and Bones is approximately 1 in 750,000.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
3 generations.
Yeah, both of them endings is crazy to that. I'm not gonna lose, but also his one before, yeah. But I'd like just brush under the carpet that you're part of the same weirdo boys club and say, but I disagree with him. Mm.
of the
Did that interviewer get killed or what?
family had been members of Skull and Bones. George W. Bush, his father George H.W. Bush, and his father before him, Prescott Bush, were all members of this occult secret society.
The videotape provides a grainy glimpse into what appear to be the initiation rituals of a secret society that's been around since 1832, whose members have gone on to be leaders of Wall Street and the White House, the Senate and the Supreme Court.
They're sort of trying to scare the initiates, make them, disorient them, frighten them.
New York Observer investigative reporter Ron Rosenbaum accompanied a team of Yale students who shot these pictures 9 days ago. Rosenbaum's curiosity about Skull and Bones was permanently piqued when, as a classmate of George W. Bush, he lived right next to the Tomb, the group's heavily fortified home. From their perch, Rosenbaum and his cohorts taped the Tomb's courtyard. What they captured, they say, was initiates, known as neophytes, being forced to kiss a skull, then members performing a mock killing. It may look like your average fraternity nonsense, but Rosenbaum says it's not.
Even though it may seem silly to us, it seems to mean something to them, and you can't argue with the success of Skull and Bones.
It makes no. It's weird, and you definitely was. They knew you was there, and filmed it so that it was a fake ritual where they killed someone, because it's exactly the same as the CERN, is it? Where all them scientists did that weird mock sacrifice ritual, and then they was like, "Oh yeah, it's just a joke." It's like, actually, no. Scientists don't even entertain that type of thing. Why are you dressing up in robes as scientists and doing some mock execution on someone? The same as that. It may seem like just a bit of fun and yeah, jolly old good time in the woods. It's like, no, that's not what it seems like to me, bro. It seems very, very weird. And why are you doing it? And why are you people in power? Right.
It has been alleged by members of Skull and Bones that it was Prescott Bush who stole the skull and bones of Indian chief Geronimo and placed it in the tomb as a source of spiritual power. George W. Bush never apologized for his activities in Skull and Bones. One of the first things he did as president was appoint many of his fellow bonesmen to positions of power.
President Bush has tapped 5 fellow bonesmen to join his administration. Most recently, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, William Donaldson, Skull and Bones, 1953.
Does that relationship forged with all this mumbo-jumbo and coffins and skulls and bones and all of that stuff, does that become, in some cases anyway, stronger than family, faith?
Absolutely. You know, they say the motto at Yale is for God, for country, and for Yale. At Bones, I would think it's for Bones.
I know, it just makes me die how they just think it's like. But then I suppose it does work because look, Bohemian Grove has gone out there. I don't know if I've actually seen that footage of Skull and Bone. Maybe I have. But I've seen the Bohemian Grove, the Alex Jones one, and it's like, what on earth? To be fair, that's another reason where my belief in God come from. Because of going into the conspiracy world, at least they believe in the devil, our elites. And they're doing things for the devil. And I don't know, I'd rather be on God's side, if I'm honest. like getting into conspiracies and also just seeing the world and how everything is. It's like, definitely the devil exists, which means if the devil exists, God's got to exist. And if God exists, I'd rather be on his team. With these creepy rituals. Jesus don't want you to do none of that shit. He sacrificed himself. So you don't have to do all this heathen, pagan savagery. But yeah, that's this part. Sweet.